You know that group that was brought in the late.
Yep, the CalArts grads or CalArts
So
team.
so my great uncle was actually working at Disney's back then, and he ended up working at he ended up kind of working in the Disney education thing. His name was Walt Stanchfield.
No
And
way!
yeah, and he was a great teacher and mentor to a lot of people. And I only got to talk to him a handful of times. He really, sadly, I didn't get to hang out with him.
Aww.
But anyway, Bluth had worked at Disney's back in 1959,
Right.
On Sleeping Beauty, and then Bluth is a Mormon, so Bluth
yeah.
LDS, and so he left and done his I forget what they call it, but for nearly 10 years he was gone, and so he got back to Disney I think in '68 or '69, and was working on Winnie the Pooh and everything, but eventually, and he'd worked with them through Aristocats and Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And John Pomeroy and came around that time, and Gary Goldman just a little bit after that. But that group of people, Eric Larson was kind of their main mentor, and Larson was really the person kind of first setting up that division. Walt Stanchfield had been an animator in some of those films, and it turned out that he was a pretty good instructor, and so he kind of went over into the education section more at that point. Brad told a really good story. He told this great story about working with Bluth in that period, and Bluth had started to heavily rely on live action, mainly sort of like they were using live action ref back for Sleeping Beauty.
Right.
But those animators back then were using it mainly for performance, and not relying on the live action. And Bluth, especially in things like the small one, and even some of the footage into Fox and the Hound, which Bluth was directing originally.
Oh God, the production of Fox and the Hound is so fascinating to me.
It's a really weird period of time.
Yeah.
But he said, and I think they may have been working on The Rescuers, but he said that Bluth said to him, okay, every day we'll be looking at rushes, so we're gonna do daily pencil tests, and that when we look at whatever there is to look at that day, we'll all make comments on it, but we won't be reviewing the tests that I do, because I'll already have been happy with them. And everybody, when Bluth left, everybody kind of was talking among each other and saying, well, that's kind of egotistical. Because, regardless of how good of an animator you are, it would be nice people to be able to see your work and, you share in the camaraderie of that. He said a little bit later that day he'd gone to visit Frank Thomas to go give him something. And Frank was hauled up in his office in the old Disney buildings, that are now the corporate side of things. But anyway, so he went up to Frank's office. He saw that he had a pile of drawings laying all over the place, just crumpled up around him. And he came up and gave something to Frank, and Frank stopped him and said, what do you think of this key? And Brad said that this was a real teachable moment for him, because here's somebody that's been animating longer than anybody. And he's asking the brand new kid coming into the studio what he thinks of a layout, or what he thinks of an animation drawing. But it's an important drawing because it's a key.
Right.
So he wanted to see his opinion. He said that was almost all you needed to know about Bluth at Disney's. And what's sad about that is that Bluth could have gone much further had it not been for his ego there.
That's kind of the thing that I kind of realized about Don. And I do love and respect Don in many ways.
Oh yeah, me too.
But and this can be voiced by the likes of John Musker and Jerry Rees and Bill Croyer too. But I kind of realized, and this is also when I think back about the many flaws that I noticed, and even to some of Don's best work, it seems like he wanted to do movies a specific way as opposed to really advancing the art form. Because he was inspired by Snow White, Pinocchio, Bambi, Sleeping Beauty, etc., etc.
It was a Disney elitist.
Yeah, the thing is, he was kind of the original Disney elitist, in which he wanted to bring back the magic that Walt had, but he kind of missed the point in some way. Like,
part of the issue, honestly, I think The Secret of NIMH is the best thing they ever did.
Oh yeah.
But I think that part of the issue is that Bluth as a director needed other directors around him. He really needed a Walt Disney around him to tell him when something wasn't quite working.
Yes.
And it got to the point where Gary and Pomeroy didn't feel comfortable enough to combat Bluth's worst choices.
Yeah, even Linda Miller stated that she felt John Pomeroy was always thought to have like the better story sense, but Don kind of beat the director out of him.
And I think that John's wife was actually the best animator there, but that's a whole other
Oh,
that's a whole
absolutely.
other kettle of fish. I worked with an animator named Frank Gabriel, who actually is one of the guys who founded Powerhouse Animation.
Oh, okay.
And one of my former students actually is animation director there.
Oh, cool.
But and those guys worked on Space Jam too. But Frank had worked for Bluth for years, and he worked on Troll, and he worked on All Dogs Go to Heaven, and a few other things. Ironically enough, he'd even worked for Fred Calvert on the Final Thief thing, which he talked about what a disaster that was.
I can only imagine.
One of the things that he had said about Bluth is that the big problem with Bluth is that he ended up kind of ripping everybody off. And his studio would fold over and over again, and there were always people left kind of holding the can.
Yeah, when Secret of Nim flopped and the studio kind of folded over, there were a lot of people who pretty much never had anything nice to say about Don after that.
There's all kinds of things. Bluth had a really high moral standard for himself, and he cared about people, cared a lot about people. And it must have just killed him to screw people over, which he did.
I feel like Don Bluth, for some reason, started a new age of elitism in the cartoon community.
What Luke kind of means, and I agree with him, there seems to be this mindset nowadays, not with everybody, fortunately, there are still people who care for other art forms.
Harvey Rothman, for example, he's a great guy.
I love him, but the thing is, we've kind of noticed that people have this ridiculous high standard that is really impossible to even think up, because it's like, what standard are we even talking about? But it's more so this idea that if it's not on the level of Disney or Don Bluth, then it's automatically crap. And that is exactly why it's always a breath of fresh air for me whenever I see something by, a lower tier studio that makes stuff outside the realms of this quote-unquote higher art form. Because
there's always
animation
been that elitism there, though, honestly. And I was talking kindly about Frank Thomas a little bit ago, but the stories are legion of that little group of 9 old men being really difficult to get along with, and being and all having huge egos. That no wonder that they couldn't get along with each other all the time.
Right.
Milt Cole was the biggest ego.
Apparently, Milt Cole was one of the most difficult people to get along with ever, and he used to freak out and get really angry with everybody, not being able to draw as well as he could.
Oh yeah, like Brad Bird, even like when he was trained at age 14 at Disney, Milt would always go like, "You're not exploring the possibilities. You gotta do this. Don't trace." And then
don't bother me anymore. I'm busy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's famous stories of him getting really mad and storming into Walt's office and just saying, "I'm quitting. You got to get me away from these people. I don't want to work on a film anymore. You're going to have to give somebody else the main character." And then apparently Disney, and this is one of those famous stories, so who knows how true this is, but apparently Disney kept a envelope full of money in his desk, and he would just sort of push the envelope toward Call as he was going in his rant, and then he would say, and then he would say something like, but I guess, I'll keep working on it. And then